Good morning, everyone. Hello. It's a beautiful fall day here in California. I got to go see the full moon out there this morning. So I'm full of the fall feelings today. What we are going to focus on today is a little bit getting into the spooky season, talking about secrets, both from a kind of fun, playful side, as well as, one of the things that a journal or a diary can serve as a container for secrets. So we're going to play with that in a couple of different ways. We'll play with quite a bit of the materials and ephemera from this past box. And I'll also show you some different pages in some books that I'm working on. And if you have not yet gotten yourself some water and maybe something to wash brushes off with or wash your hands off with, that's probably going to be a good idea. We might get a little messy today, but of course you can contain your mess in whatever way makes sense for you. So we'll go now to the camera, the studio camera here. Awesome. So a little update to my fall ArtJournalSnacks journal. I put a little bit of the tape from the box onto the cover, which I think just really finishes this off. I hadn't planned to do that, but as I was disposing of boxes the other day, I was like, oh, this is a good spot for the tape. So everything can be ephemera. Okay, and we are going to go to a blank page here. I find that it's useful sometimes when I'm just getting started for a little journaling session to go to a blank page and give myself all of the options, right? I have all the different options for what I can play with today. And I'm going to start with the very fine point rollerball pen that we received. And even just this little line, right, just starting out with a little line and then maybe following it again. I've already eliminated that, since we're staying with spooky ideas today, that scary feeling of the blank page, right? We have a little bit less of that in this journal since it has toned paper, but sometimes the blank page can feel a little bit scary. So you've seen me do this in a lot of different ways, and it really does help to get started by just doing a little scribbling, doing a little bit of movement on the paper, loosen yourself up. Some of you, your day has already moved along quite a bit. Some of you, it is a weekend and the morning, so getting a little bit of that scribbling out of the way. And then thinking about what might come next. So I am going to take a broad brush and just put a little water onto this page. So the thing that I like about these very fine pens is because it's a roller ball, the ink will move a little bit. So I'm kind of scrubbing at this with my brush to encourage that ink to move around a little bit. Get a little bit softer in some of these areas. And it's also going to give me a place to make some interesting marks. I'm going to go ahead now and just really get the top of this whole spread all the way across. Really wet. And you might notice that you can see the thread here where the book is sewn together. When you're going to make a really messy page, like I'm about to do, choosing a page like that where this is one piece of paper here because it's stitched here. So this is going to lie nice and flat while I'm working and also give me a great surface to make a big mess on. Okay, so that's pretty darn wet. And I'm going to take a white colored pencil, and I'm not doing this to make marks with pigment. If you have one of those clear blender colored pencils, that would also work. Of course, you can also use your plain old regular drawing pencil. You'll just have a little bit of graphite pigmentation in there. And I am just kind of digging into the pages. So one of the things that is exciting about working in this journal for the fall box is the pages are really thick. So you can do interesting things like this that build up some cool texture. Because this paper is really saturated, I'm able to almost emboss into it with the colored pencil. And you can see there's a little bit of white colored pencil pigment going on to here, but mostly it's just scoring into the surface of the paper. And if you run your finger along it, you can actually feel that. So I'm doing a lot of scribbling. If scribbling is not your jam, you can absolutely get a ruler out and do some marks that way. It doesn't have to be scribbly. I just am a big fan of scribbles. Okay, so I'm getting this wet again because I want to do something messy. So I'm going to get my Indian ink out now. And we experimented last time with using it in a lot of different ways. So we're going to try one of those ways right now, which is to just use the dripper. And I'm just going to glide it right across the top of the page here. So if you haven't used it since last time we played with the ink, just refamiliarize yourself with the different ways that you can make marks. Big thick parts or more thin lines. Try to get a little bit of variation as you work your way across the top of your page. This has been a kind of an interesting change for me in my art journaling practice over the past year plus that we've been playing together. I didn't used to put a lot of borders on my pages, but lately that's felt really satisfying. So I'm going to lift up this page so that I can start to get some good drips here. This is one of those moments where I wish we could take a little microscope lens and look at this really closely. It's really interesting what's happening. I'm just going to scribble a little bit now. I'm using the very sharp point. These almost look like fuzzy caterpillars. So as you watch me do this, if you're looking at the screen right now, you can see I'm turning this little nib that comes in the lid of the ink. And when you turn it, you can change how fine or bold the mark is. And because it's kind of sharp, it does scratch a little bit into the surface of this paper, which is great. So again, I'm getting more of that interesting texture. So more fluid on this side, more line work, sketchy on this side. So now at this point, right, you're starting to see like, oh, there's something happening on this page, right? It's not just experimentation. There's this progression that's happening from one side to the other. So this is one of the things that I like to just watch when I'm working and respond to it in the moment. So I'm going to use a little watercolor now. And I am going to go, I want something a little bit orangey, yellowy. This is like the color that the moon was this morning when I went out to see it. Bright orange, looks like a pumpkin on the horizon. So I'm going to keep this mostly on this side of my original line, but it's okay if it goes over it a little bit because I'm going to go back in there. So another thing some of you may have been noticing working on these thicker pages is sometimes as you're working on it, if it's getting very saturated, it'll kind of bow up like this, and then some of your pigment will go onto the next page. And I would just encourage you, if you find that frustrating or you're upset about it, see if you can reframe that. Lee and I were talking about rebranding before you all came on, and see if you can rebrand that experience by seeing it as an opportunity to either go back and edit the page that you had done before, or that it's creating a possibility on the next blank page that you haven't yet gotten to. I'll show you later on in our class today, I'll show you a journal that I just kind of pushed that as far as I possibly could and made it as messy as possible before I even started working in it. And I had so much fun. It was about a month or so working on that journal, and I had so much fun doing all those different layers. Okay, so you can see that the watercolor is kind of cooling in some areas and a little lighter in other areas, and I want to get a little more dark over on this side. And with my brush, I can start to get a little bit of wet on wet line work so that I'm mimicking what I did with the ink a little bit. So maybe as you're working, you're starting to tell yourself in your head a story of what this page is about. And it's okay if you don't have one. It's okay if it's just about moving pigment on the page. There's kind of this balance, and we'll talk more about this today, this balance between making a page just because it's fun to make and just because you're experimenting with materials, or maybe you just want to be messy or you want to explore something. And then sometimes you go to your journal because you're making a page with a clear intention. Like, I want to make a page about this experience that I'm having right now. And what are the materials that are going to help me do that? I'm really loving what's happening right now. This is an old-ish brush, and you can see that it's got probably some old acrylic paint up here in this area. And so it creates almost this leaf shape, so I can use it almost like a stamp. And I really, really encourage you, as you're playing with your materials and working on pages, to let things like this, discoveries like this, guide you. Meaning, don't, I could just sit here and continue using this brush like a brush, but this discovery of it, using it as a stamp, is really interesting to me. So I want to see what else I can do with it. Right? So don't miss that opportunity to explore something new just because you were it's taking you down maybe a different rabbit hole than you had intended. Okay, that's super fun. All right. So now coming to this idea of a secret. Right, so I'm going to go back to my white colored pencil. And you can think about, maybe when you were a kid, you had this idea of wanting invisible ink, or somewhere else that you could put your secrets that your sibling or your parents or your friends wouldn't know about. And your white colored pencil can be one way to do that. And especially if it's wet into wet, writing your secrets in a way that people might not see when they look at the page, right? I wrote the word secrets over here. You can kind of see it, but it's also a little bit hidden in there. So as you're working on, especially a big page like this, there are opportunities to hide little things in there. Little, like an Easter egg in a movie or a video game, right? This little hidden secret that gets put into the page. And of course we have Indian ink, which is such a great way to obliterate writing that you wrote down that you didn't necessarily want anyone else to be able to read. It was helpful to you to write it, but you don't really want it just on a page. Help yourself with some of that black ink. Okay. And the more texture and pattern that you add onto a page, the more you can kind of distract from the secret that you've written there. So I encourage you in your art journal that's not being live streamed to actually write a secret. And, you know, we'll talk more about this today, but it doesn't have to be, secrets aren't all bad, shameful secret things that we can't tell anyone. Sometimes it's like a joyful secret, right? Maybe it's a wish. In some ways, our wishes are these secrets from the world, these things we haven't yet lived into or taken on, the dream. So I am going to let this page dry for a bit, put it somewhere, and pull out another journal that's same shape and size, same format. And for this one, I wanted to play with, I played with one last time, but one of the side benefits of being the assembler of the ephemera is I have a little bit of leftover of some of the ephemera, and I have a few leftover of the black envelopes, which some of you got. Some of you received a different kind of envelope, but everyone received an envelope. So I'm going to take this one. This page has already had different acrylic art paint smeared onto it. So it's a really nice home for this envelope. And then this becomes such a great spot to kind of hide your secret, to put something in there and keep it just for yourself. Thing to know when you put envelopes onto pages is that even with a really good glue, the edges are going to come up a little bit. And it's kind of up to you how you deal with that. There's a couple of different ways that I like to do it. Sometimes I'll take a thinner piece of paper, this is like a piece of handmade paper, ephemera, and I'll put it here, which is the spot that's going to get the most stress, the top where you would slide something in. And so it's almost like putting a strap on there. Dig into making things secure with straps. It's putting my paddleboard on the roof of my car. So I'm really into this lately. Put that on there. I'll just wrap the rest of this paper around to the other side. This is part of how we get the wonderful edges on our art journals. Anytime you have the opportunity to wrap paper around to the next page, go for it, because it'll help your journal stay put. I have this other piece here, and I like the way the color of this paper looks with the other colors that are already on the page. I kind of have a couple choices. I could put it here and know that it's going to keep that envelope secure, but then I lose the envelopeness of it. I almost want to do something different that'll help it stay on the page, but won't look so like mask it away so much, hide it. Kind of like it that way. And with the handmade paper, various kinds, you want to look and see which side of the paper you like better. If they usually have a side that rested against the screen where the paper was made and a side that was face up. One will have more of a regular pattern and one will be more natural looking, usually a little softer looking. So I'm going to do this again, have it go off the page a little bit. Wrap that around. So this envelope is becoming more and more able to contain a secret. And I think since we were talking about wishes earlier, I think I do want to make this one about a wish. So I'm going to take a little oil pastel And eventually this will be an arrow, but I want it to kind of meander a little bit. Mostly because I want to play with the oil pastel on the acrylic. Look at these fun patterns and textures. It almost looks like birch bark. So that'll be my arrow pointing to where the wish will be. And I'm just going to use my colored pencil again. I'm going to write this kind of small. Sometimes our wishes are these little tiny things. They don't have to be big wishes. Now the oil pastel is, a little bit messy on the page, and what I've been doing is using the matte medium that we received, and I go over it later to help seal it down onto the paper. And that seems to be working pretty well. I've noticed from what people have been sharing on Mix that a lot of people have been taking that route. There are other sealers that you can use for oil pastel, but matte medium seems to do the trick pretty well. If you've been using something else to help it stay put on your journal, you should let us know in the chat. And my scribbles again. This is why I use these pads on the surface when I'm working, so that I have somewhere to kind of wipe my tools off. Not the end of the world if it gets stuck on there, but it's a thing to be aware of. I have one other thing that I think I'm going to add to this page before I set it aside for a bit. This is some washi tape that I got with some of my students, some of whom are ArtJournalSnacks subscribers at the Museum of Rocks and Minerals in Oregon. And this one has kind of this interesting pattern that's like the earth's layers and other things that are kind of rock-like or landscape-like, and it's just exactly the right color on this page. This is something that I don't know, I feel sometimes like, do I want the washi tape to be its own thing, or do I want it to be more of a pattern? So sometimes I'll put one piece down and then make the decision later about I want a little bit more of it, so it almost fades into the background a little bit more. It's not so much featured. Now, a nice thing that you can do with the washi tape, and I'll tell you a couple different ways you can deal with the sticky part of the envelope. Because maybe you put your wish in here and it really is a secret wish and you don't want anyone to ever see it, you just want to know that you put it in there, then keep that and seal your envelope in, right? But maybe you want to be able to revisit that wish later, and one of the ways that you can make that available to yourself is to take a little washi tape and cover the sticky part of the envelope. And then you can wrap it around the front of the envelope, but I'm going to trim it. So then you have your little flap. That worked out perfectly with that lavender paper, so it kind of accentuates where the flap is. And then you open it and it's like like having patterned fabric on the inside of a jacket, right? That you open it up and it's like, ooh, there's a little bit of fanciness. And then you've got a spot that you can put a piece of paper with some kind of a secret. I'm just digging into my ephemera from this month. I wonder about these ladies from an art history book, about them kind of being the secret. I'm going to trim this a little. I'm going to save this paper because it's got this 4 with an arrow and a 5, and I just feel like at some point that's going to come in handy. And you have a couple choices. So if you're going to seal it, you want to make it small enough that you can still seal that envelope. But I'm actually going to keep this a little bit long so that it's easier to pull them out. Of course, another thing you could do is make it into a little tag with a piece of string or ribbon on it and have that part come out so you can get to it later. On the side for a moment. Have her have a gold beach bubble. She'll be the one to speak the wish and I figure out what that is. I'm going to set that aside for a bit. Now I'm going to come to another blank page. And for this one, I wanted to think about this idea of a journal versus a diary. So an art journal versus a diary. So I'm just going to use a little bit of that water that had watercolor in it. I don't know if you can hear Sammy. The door is closed, but she's decided to start singing some songs for us. Okay. So we all have different associations with words, right? And it's a fun thing to do sometimes to use your art journal as a means to explore that for yourself. And for ease of writing, I'm going to do mine this way, just so I'm not blocking so much of the page. You can, of course, do one page and then another page that way. It's up to you. Okay, so I'm going to write the word. And I'm doing wet or dry into wet because I want it to kind of fade away a little bit. Okay, so thinking about a diary and what comes up for you when you think about what a diary is. So for me, when I think about a diary, I think about like being 9 years old and having a diary that's like a secret and it's just for me. And I would be humiliated if someone found it. And so it had to be hidden. So I actually had a little area in my room that was like where there would be a vent if the house had central heating, which it didn't. But the vent, you could lift it up and then there was a little tray in there and I would hide my diary in there for many years, most of my childhood. So you can see in the words that I've chosen here, some of these things are true about an art journal, but I feel like embarrassed and hide, I don't associate those words with an art journal. So an art journal, when I think about an art journal, I think about so when I think about art journals, for me, what comes up are the words expressive, a record, that it's a friend, and it's a place to experiment. So just some ways to play with discerning for yourself what is true. And you can do this same exercise with any number of words that kind of are in a binary, or maybe things you're trying to work through your understanding of them. How do I feel about this? Just doing simple word associations is a fun way to start a page that you can then continue to play with, right? So maybe I make the art journal side more expressive. Maybe, in fact, I think I'll do this right now. And with the diary side, thinking about how might I use the dark ink to show that this is the secret side. And of course, your art journal, maybe for you, your art journal is a secret place. Me, are there pages I don't explain to people? Yes. But in general, I am pretty open. I think about like generous sharing of my art journal, and with most people, if they want to see it, I'll just hand it to them. If there's ever a page that I wouldn't want other people to see, I think I've talked about this before, I'll just take a paper clip or something else and kind of cover or make those two pages stick together so that it's not visible to others. But for the most part, I really like sharing my art journal with people, because I think, I mean, I guess that's why I do this, right? But for me, it's just like really joyful to have someone see that they can stick their candy wrapper, or, you know, spill some coffee on a page and then make it into something else. So here's that wonderful stamp again from this brush. This is why enjoy your new brushes, but also save your old beat up brushes, because they can make wonderful stamps. Let's look at that interesting pattern. It would also make a cool leaf, or like a school of fish, put little tails on them. So there's my journal side, on my diary side. Cool colored water over here. All right, I'm gonna let that ink dry for a bit. And I am going to open up a different journal now. This is the book that I made live on Mix. Some of you may have seen that, with using a whole pad of paper to make a journal. And so I've put a cover onto mine. I haven't yet done anything with the folded paper side. I have some ribbon that eventually I'll put there. But I wanted to show a page and then play with a little more this idea of secrets and hiding places. And on this page, what I did is took watered down India ink and made some loose places to write. And this was a song lyric that was kind of in my mind this morning, so I added it onto this page, and I thought I could do just a tiny bit more here with the oil pastel. funny how sometimes starting with a song lyric can help you kind of realize what it is that you want to think about or create about. I hadn't listened to this song in a long time. The artist's name is Mira, M-A-R-I-H, M-I-R-A-H. And the song is called Monument. And it was very resonant for me this morning. So I've really been enjoying with this box playing with much more controlled materials like the ink, especially the very fine point pen, and then these oil pastels, which are, if you're working in the sun like I am right now, is very melty and much harder to have like a rigid control over, which if we're looking for the sweet spot for art journaling, that's kind of perfect, right? Like this mix of a little bit of control that feels a little more comfortable, and then something that's going to challenge you a little bit to get out of your own way and express what's really going on. So when I was writing down the lyrics for this song today, I wrote down some of them, the ones that first were kind of resonating with me. And then at the end of the song, she sings, so try where you are, do what you can. You belong to what you understand. And I was thinking about what a great message for art journaling that is. This is part of how we come to understand ourselves. You belong to what you come to understand. Kind of what we're doing with the materials too, right? Like starting to understand them and make them our own. If you have something like an ink that gets washed away a little bit, just going in with pencil, darken that back up, no problem. So again, this will be a page that I'll probably go in with some matte medium over the top of that oil pastel later in order to have it hold its place a little more. See, I want just a tiny bit more color up here. I don't know about you all, but I'm really feeling all the fall colors. Sounds like some of you have already gone into very cold time, but here it's just almost glowing outside my window. All right, I'm going to let that sit so that I don't mess with any more of the ink that's on there. I wanted to show you something that I created and then walk through the process of doing it. This was a piece of paper. You might recognize this from some of the other things I've been playing with today. Just a piece of handmade paper that I've used now the leftovers from it. And I was in a meeting and I was writing some things down that I needed to take care of. And this was the only paper that was available, which sometimes that happens, right? If you have art supplies on your desk, sometimes you end up writing on something that was like, oh, that was a nice piece of paper. And I just wrote a to-do item on it. That's not great, but I decided to make this into a little envelope with some of the other things that were sitting around on my desk. And because this is kind of a thick paper, I glued it, but then to make it a little more stable, I ended up doing some kind of messy stitches. And I left the note to myself on there, suggestions. And if you peek inside, it actually says, here's an idea. So I made this little, like, almost like a little bag, little journal, and that would be fun to make it a little home. And because I made this with a loop, I could use something. This is the paper that I cut off from that art history image. And if I glued it like top and bottom, I could make it so this would move around. But before I do that, I want to show just quickly how to make an envelope. Okay. So this is light paper, so I'm actually going to put an ArtJournalSnacks envelope behind it so that hopefully we can see it a little better. So you want something that is long and with a long rectangle, but really you can do this with any size and shape of paper that you want. So think about how an envelope is constructed. You're going to do one fold, and then you'll have your flap that folds down. So perfectly serviceable envelope, just like it is. So if you don't have an envelope or you want to make something out of a cool piece of paper, this is a great way to just do that. However, if you want to get a little bit fancy, you can make this envelope a little bit more like something that you might purchase. So you're going to cut your corners. I'm not worried about it being perfect. And then you're going to cut your corners here too. And don't worry about your flap. You'll fix that in a moment. Okay, so now you have something that looks like that. You cut the bottom corners next to the fold. You cut the top corners where the flap is. And now you're going to, you can do this either just extending the line there from your cut, or like I did with this one, you can cut it in a circle, semicircle. It's up to you. This one, I think I'm just going to extend my lines, cut lines. Okay. So now I have this kind of funny thing. And what you're going to do is fold it in. So fold your little flaps in. And this is such a fun way to make envelopes of all different sizes that you can make little hiding places in your journal. So great for giving gifts. We're coming up towards the gift season. So when you get all of your wonderful art supplies from the ArtSnacks shop and are ready to gift art supplies to all your friends and family, you can make little envelopes with your own art on it. Okay, so there we have a little envelope friend. Now, can you get fancy and do other things here? Of course, but this is a really easy way to make an envelope. I'm just going to use some glue stick. I like to put glue on both sides of the flaps that I'm going to stick together. It's like a holdover from back in the day when we used rubber cement, which please don't use rubber cement in your art journal. I mean, you can, but it's not archival and it'll do weird stuff. Okay, so I've got my little envelope, I've got my little flap, and I have something that I can stick really easily into a page in my art journal and hide a little secret in there. Let's come back to this page. Okay. 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 So this one, I built this in the exact same way. I just decided to stitch this just with a needle and thread and some messy stitches. I want to make this able to lie flat in the journal, but also to see that it's got this suggestions text on here. So that's why I made this kind of bigger flap. So in the process that we just did with making that envelope, before you glue your flaps together, you could put a little piece of string or yarn or something else to make a little handle or a little tab for your envelope. I'm going to take some of the double stick tape that we got a couple boxes ago. I'm just going to put this top and bottom on here. This is again, this is like, I used to play with double stick tape all the time when I was in graphic design, but didn't really ever do it in my art journal until we got it in the box and been having a lot of fun playing with double stick tape.
Hey, Erin, this is Lee. Sorry about that. Hey, Erin, this is Lee. We're a little bit past halfway. Just giving a heads up.
Okay. So now I have my little envelope that can slide around in here. See, there's a little bit of this paper I want to trim. So it slides a little better. There we go. Okay, so good little spot for a secret. So you could also do this with ribbon. The paper will be a little bit fragile, but as long as you're not yanking on it, it should be fine. This is kind of a thicker piece of paper straight out of an art book, so it should be okay. And then I have my little pouch. I guess this is for suggestions. Maybe it's suggestions to myself. What would I put in my own suggestion box? So I'm going to play more with that page later. I had another thing that I wanted to do. So everyone received in this past ephemera kit some different flashcards. I happened to receive this one of this little mouse, which I thought was a good one for something kind of spooky, creepy, even though this is a very cute looking little mouse. This place that I live had a secret before I lived here, which became no longer a secret. The landlord told me that the person who lived here before me had a snake and didn't tell them. It was not covered under the pet policy on the lease. And I keep finding little bits of evidence that there was a snake in this house. I won't talk about all of them. One of them was a thermometer, a reptile thermometer on the back of the door. So the snake definitely slept in my bedroom, which is not awesome. We're also little evidence of mice's snake dinner. So I wanted to do something kind of playful with the snake, or sorry, with the mouse, and also utilize some of there's a bonkers bird sound outside my door right now. I'm not sure what it is. Almost sounds like there's a wild turkey in the in the garden behind my house. All right, so from the thesaurus, I got this section that was about form. And there's some interesting things in here from like an art journaling perspective that stood out to me. This word inscape, I love. Not a landscape, but an inscape. So I just like to go through here and circle words that I like. The cut of one's jib. My dad would appreciate that I circled that one. And this is a new word to me. I don't know that I've ever used it in a sentence, but ephemation, which is the process of forming and shaping and creation. So found some words that I like from here. And I've got this happy little mouse. I want to do something to make him almost like seem a little bit troublesome, like he's a bit of a problem, this mouse. And a couple of different ways you could think about doing that. I'm kind of looking around to see what's on the studio desk, and one of the things is here are those pieces I pulled off the envelope. We could give him like a little hat, be a party hat. And use the same kind of yellow color. I have no idea where this page is going, which is always a fun thing. Doing my ground line. Again, for me, this is not, like this wouldn't be a page I would necessarily set out to create. And one of the things that I hope that you're starting to explore with the different bits of ephemera that you get every month or every quarter is like, oh, I got this. What am I gonna do with this mouse? You know, maybe I don't remember if anyone got a skunk as I was putting them into envelopes, but if you did get a skunk, like what might you create with a skunk? Okay, so here I have my little mouse in his little party hat. Well, mystery solved. The strange bird I heard was a raven making funny noises outside. You must know I'm doing spooky things today. Got some secrets back there. So when I'm putting different little bits of material on, I like to just personally like to do them in odd numbers. Visually, to me, it looks better. Cover that one a little bit. And so even just this little bit is starting to make this not feel maybe quite so childish. And childish is fine, playful is fine, but not usually the vibe I'm going for in my art journal. I might play with something like that on this page in a different way, but we shall see. I'm going to tuck this in here so that I can save it. And what I would love to do now is I have something else I'd like to show you, but first I would like to give people the opportunity to share what they've been up to. Make sure that we have time for that.
If you want to share, go ahead and either raise your digital hand or your actual hand. All right, we got Kelsey. Let's replace you. Go ahead and unmute.
Hello.
Kelsey.
Am I unmuted?
We can hear you.
Okay. I did a little bit of journaling about how, like, because it's fall, I have not seen a lot of sun and stuff, and it's kind of been like depression has been getting a little harder and like trickling in and everything. So this is what I did for the start. Wait. Let's see. My God. Video, don't blur. There you go. And my little secret envelope.
Oh, nice.
Right. And then I got the mouse too. And I had just started, yeah. And I started doing these little mice. I want to do like a background of like all little mice lined up and stuff in a row. And then I was gonna put the card on the other side and stuff like that. So that was mine. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
All right, thanks for sharing. Let's go to Jill.
Hello, let me get rid of my background here. There we go. This is what I did today. I'm traveling, so I'm traveling light. So I don't have my India ink, but I have some acrylic ink. Last time I covered a whole page with India ink, and I ended up writing a poem I came up with in gold, which was kind of fun. And then one other happy accident that happened with the oil pastels before I sealed it. So I did some oil pastels over here. And then when I wrote the poem, it picked up the lettering backwards. I don't know if you guys can see that because of the light, but and then I sealed it. But I thought, oh, that's fun. I'm just going to leave that there. So it's almost like a way to do a reverse writing, like cover a page in oil pastel and then write on the other page and it'll pick it up. So I don't know. That was kind of fun. Anyway, just wanted to share that. Thanks.
So go ahead, Erin. It looks like we got some conversation in the chat here.
Yeah, so Sherry asked about the composition with this, let me pick this up, with this big wide book we have, right? So I'll take this opportunity to look at you all through my book. Some of you were on Mix the other day when I was making this page that is meant to be, find it, there we go. It's meant to be looked through. So there's a couple different ways that you can play with this idea of how to work with these big long pages. So if we can go back to the desk view, I can show you one way to think about, which moves some of these things aside. What I really need is like a round, like a donut shaped table that I can sit in the middle of it and like be on a spinny chair and just rotate my way around. Okay, so if you have this big long expanse of this page, it's fun to work on landscape, but I know for some of us maybe it feels like a stretch. It's not a composition that most of us work with most of the time, right? We generally are either working on something that's more the size of one of these pages or is square, right? So this can feel like a little bit difficult. So one of the things that you can do, and this is like a really quick and easy solution for yourself. I'm just going to stick with this same chrome yellow color I've been playing with. But you can think about, what if I made manageable pieces of this page? So if I make each page almost into its own thing, so this page has two squares. It's a different color for this page. And this one has two. And then I've given myself permission to work on 4 smaller things instead of one big thing. Okay, so that's one way that you might do it. So another way that you might do it is to do something that helps you to connect these pages and pull the focus to the very center of it. So kind of say that the part I'm going to be journaling in or focusing on is right here in the center of the book. So now your focus is here, right? You're just playing with this part, and maybe you paint out these edges with the India ink, or you fill them with pattern, right? And you've kind of given yourself permission to just pay attention to this part. And that is totally doable. You don't need to think about working with the whole page. Okay, now I'm going to show you something else that you can do with this, and I'll just do it from this side. There are no rules that you have to keep every page, this whole section. Okay, so you can just unceremoniously bring your scissors in and cut that out, right? So now I have maybe this size that's a little more manageable, and then I've got this part that's a little more manageable, and I've got this interesting center thing here, and then this part of this page can play across this whole thing, or maybe this is just dark and this is its own page. So if you're feeling stumped by the big long pages, there's no reason that you can't cut them. Another thing you can do, and I'll just do it right here, you can fold the pages over. And maybe we should have talked about this in our first live stream, but you could also take this journal and fold every page so that you're working more on these little squares, right? So that this would be a page and this other one would be a page, and you'd have all these interesting folded pieces. So maybe I'll fold 2 of these so we can get the idea of that, right? So like here's a page and here's a page, and then maybe the back side of this leads into this. You have this opportunity to make it even more interactive. It's also a good spot for secrets, right? Because again, you folded that up. Now, depending on how closely you fold it into that center gutter line, you might want to trim these edges a little bit or round the edges a little bit, just so your book will still close up, but you can deal with that as you get there. Okay. So here's the spot I was talking about with a little bit more of the ArtJournalSnacks page. I'm just going to add a little watercolor on this and on my brush. So hopefully that helps with, because it's a different shape, right? And we got used to that same shape. Lee, is it okay to tell them about the next journal?
I want to get a tracking number first.
Fair enough. So it remains a secret, which is good because that's what we're playing with today, is secret. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. The other fun thing that'll do is make the side view of your journal with the folded pages a little more interesting. Okay. So I wanted to show you, I intentionally have not done a tour of this little art journal because I wanted to save it for today, actually. I wanted to save a little tour of this journal because it does have some pages that are kind of about secrets. So I wanted to share a little bit of that with you. So this was a very small journal. And this is also the one that I told you about that I just really made a mess of it before I even started. So I took this journal and just saturated it with alcohol ink, like refills for Copic markers, and splattered some things and did all sorts of stuff to the journal to take away the white pages. And also because this journal had very thin paper. So I knew that things were going to bleed from one page to the other, and I wanted to play with that instead of letting it frustrate me. So I kind of leaned into the fun of that. So I started this one on September 30th. And you can see I attended an art show with the DeYoung. My friend had a piece in the show, so it was fun to see that. The big, it's called the DeYoung Open, and it's a big celebration of Bay Area artists, a juried show. So we've been talking on Mix about using your art journal as a container for affirmations and motivating statements to yourself. This is a tool that I've showed you some before, but it's one of those little rolling stamps that you use for marking out areas of your mail to make it secure and private, but it also plays really well in an art journal. Here's a note from Lee. If you send me a note, it will go in my art journal. This is a page that is about a secret. And so I sometimes will write something that's kind of a cryptic response that only I know what it means, but when I see it, I know exactly what it means. And you can see here where the watercolor and then also the acrylic ink and then the matte medium are all playing together to create these wonderful textures. And there's lots of texture on this one. Really giving yourself permission to write stuff in your art journal that maybe helps you to reframe something. And then, so I did initially this writing, envy doesn't help. And then I did a little bit more writing to myself, thinking about some things going on at work and being a work nomad. This is something I've been really enjoying playing with these really thin pages. This is written with raised up acrylic and then doing a rubbing on the next page and then playing with that same text again. Sometimes you can use messy writing as a means for writing secrets. Combining writing with just mark making. This was the day I was not feeling good. Letting yourself write down the things that are maybe hard to write down. So excited but left out. My office at our new building won't be done till December. So I was feeling kind of left out. So my journal became a nice place to receive that, capture that. The little piece of obsidian that I glued into my art journal while I was working on the labyrinth that I maintain. And absolutely, you can glue rocks right into your journal. Recording a fall morning. Here's a little throwback to something we did a while ago in ArtJournalSnacks with the paper weaving. And I really had fun with this, with like a little gloss on one side of the paper I was weaving in. And it's matte on the other side. This is actually an envelope that I got from Olo markers in. So using the shipping materials for art supplies as art materials. This is a piece of ephemera that proves that everything can be ephemera. This is a burned, I think I might have showed this on our last ephemera hour, but it's a burned notice that was inside my heater. Seems like a paper label that can burn is not a great thing to put inside a heater, but okay. I saved this receipt not for really sentimental reasons at all, but because it had the stamping on it, which I really liked. Look how great those numbers are. And then I just thought this was the sweetest message on a receipt. Thank you, call again. We appreciate your patronage and hope we may continue to merit it. If we please you, tell your friends. If we don't, tell us. We strive to satisfy. It's from a little vintage shop that I, like a warehouse I went and visited, and I thought that was the sweetest little receipt. This was testing out what we're probably going to do at work for name tags for our harvest meal. We're going to write them on leaves and pin the leaves to ourselves. But look at that picture. How fun is that? Chopsticks paper, always fun ephemera to include. And then here's this leaf that's actually physically here, and here's a rubbing from the backside of it. So really playing with this idea of what's on one page and how does that inform the next page. So this was a page that was about something that's not necessarily a secret, but it is kind of a strong emotion. So feelings of regret and working with that idea of regret, and then thinking about how something you put on one page can also inform the next page. So this was with Olo marker on this side. So the I actually came through onto the back side. So I wrote a message to myself, watch closely, don't look away. A visitor badge from going to meet with some students at a local art school. These pages I'm actually going to go quickly by. There's a secret. This one I showed the other day on our mix live stream, just taking those are where those eye holes were that I cut out. Here's that same washi tape that I showed using today. Here using it in kind of a different way. Here's another example of a Venn diagram. I was going to write words into this one, but I decided I just liked the way it looked just as a thing itself. So I just wrote the word balance over here. And then this was another thing I wanted to show as a different type of an envelope. Since we've been playing with envelopes today, this is a seed packet, which is a great little envelope. So I actually put the flap of the envelope on the previous page so that you open the envelope by moving the envelope itself. So that's something you can think about playing with your envelopes is, again, really quickly with another envelope, you can use the flap as a way to attach it, and then you move the envelope in order to open it. So I did that here with these echinacea seeds, and then I had another sticker from another seed packet that kind of got messed up as I was taking the seeds out. So I just took the sticker off it and put that here. And I wrote a little message to my seeds that I planted, hoping for more luck with things that I grow to eat rather than things that eat to grow. And I did a little rubbing here from a Venus flytrap that did not survive. Apparently, no flies in here from my poor little Venus flytrap. Another woven page, you might recognize this material from what I created that envelope tag with. Sometimes it's just about texture. This page is about paddling on the river, getting up at 3 in the morning to make that happen. We've been playing with this all through our time journaling together, but using the little check boxes. Think about making yourself a little list of things to do before the end of the day that are good for you, that are positive. About smell and memory. The smell matters to my memories. I love the way this embossed packaging ended up working with the colored pencil over the top of it. Pictures from a walk around my area. And then the end of the journal snuck up on me. I wasn't really ready for this journal to be done because I was really enjoying the size and the colors on it, but it snuck up on me. So I finished this one on the 26th. I wanted to do a little tour of that with you all today. And see if anyone else would like to share.
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes left. So if anyone wants to share what they made, let's see. I'm going to take a look here. Susanna, here we go. I'm going to replace, and feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi. I wanted to share like first my front cover because the journal came with that little information slip and I decided to leave it on. So I used some tissue paper that I had and washi it on there. And then my husband and I went to a Hearthfires festival and we each got a necklace pendant. So I glued that on there, and then the part where the necklace goes in, I put this ribbon in here. I did an envelope. Where's my envelope? And I did it in a wide view. Why does it mute? Okay. I know, and I'm on my phone, so sorry. So I did a horizontal page and the envelope. I used my flashcard. It was math. I'm not a math person, so I'm hiding that away. And then what else did I want to show? Oh, and then I found this really cute card, and I'm not completely done with this page, but my husband and I have this joke where one of us says I love you, the other one says more, and this cute little card, it's a s'more, and they're like put little faces on it, and then I just wrote how much I loved him there. Nobody needs to see that, but I put a little tag on it to make it easy to open, and then on the side page I put the fire and was just putting things that reminded me of love and how it's growing. And then last, today while watching, I did this page where I did the ink drips from the top, and I did a mushroom theme because I had this sticker that says the harder the rain, the sweeter the sun, and I'm adding in raindrops. Yeah, I got black rain. Don't know what that's all about, but didn't think about that when I was doing it, but just kind of adding all of that. So having fun.
Those are so fun. Thank you so much for sharing. And I wrote in the chat that I didn't say that loud. What a great idea to save the wrapper from the journal and then use that to embellish the cover. Great idea.
Great. Let's go to Peg.
Hi, everyone. I didn't log in right. My name's actually Emery.
Oh, okay.
So, all right. So like I said, I didn't log in very well and I was late. And so here's what I did. I used the new journal and I used the pastels because my first 40 minutes today were just exactly this. Completely frustrated, hot, orange and red, splattered everywhere. I don't know what was with the computer, but I'd see Erin working and then it would go green and I'd log out and log in. And then we have an 8-month-old puppy and it acted like it wanted to go outside, and I took it outside and it didn't want to do anything. And I will say though that as you would hope or as you would expect, doing the work, doing the art, I feel better. I don't feel great yet, but I feel better. So yeah, definitely put the harder emotions in your journal.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Anne-Marie. And it's, I think it's just such a good reminder that if you're feeling something big, like fill up that whole page with it, cover the whole page with whatever that big feeling is. And a lot of times writing that big feeling down, you can kind of see it from here, right? Like that's one of the things, I'll go a little bit into art therapy here, but that's one of the things that art therapy helps us with is we take it out of here and we put it out here where we can hold it at arm's distance and look at it. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I hope it's a little less frustrating.
Yeah. I have sunshine. I'm in Washington. I have sunshine. So
Okay.
hopefully I will let it all go.
Great, thank you. Right.
Great. Anyone else want to share thoughts, feelings, findings? I'm looking through to see if anyone's actually raising their hands. No, I don't think so. So I'll hand it back over to Erin.
Okay, great. So let's go back to the camera because I want to show something that happened. So I did this page earlier and then I put the, interesting. I put the wax paper in there. And this is kind of, what do I want to say? This is like not high-end wax paper. This is the type of paper, wax paper you would get at a, like a dollar store. But I actually find that it does things better than like your super fancy expensive wax paper. Especially like, look at this wonderful thing that got captured, right? So just by sticking it in here in order to keep these watercolor squares separate. So what I'm thinking I'm probably going to do with this, maybe on this page, is actually glue it in. And for gluing wax paper, matte medium will work, but I find that something like a tacky glue is going to be maybe a better choice. The double stick tape also might work. But this is what I've got right here. So put that on there. And I really love that part right there. I just love that kind of texture. I'm going to put that onto that page. And then I can decide on this side, do I want it to go the whole way? Or maybe also have some leftover acrylics from another project, different page. So I might actually, so hot tip, having some random crayons around can really help you figure out where to cut things. I just did a rubbing quickly of the edge of that page. Fold that back. I'm going to actually tuck it right under the edge of that paper there. So now I have even another interesting texture here in my journal. Once the glue dries, I'll cut it right there. And I might actually do some of that dimensional acrylic right here along the edge. But now my journal has lots of interesting sizes and shapes of paper, which is a fun thing to play with. So I will probably finish this page sometime in the next couple of days, and I'll post it on next when I come back to this one and see how it's drying. So with this one, maybe I'll go back to some of those stencils we got a couple boxes ago and add some shapes and fill them in with bright colors. And I wanted to show this page as we close today. I think it's a good message. It's got some of the brush patterning I was talking about today, some leftover glue that I just worked with, the watered down ink. And then here, some writing that if you look closely, you can see where some of it was done into wet paper. So I was writing with a nib pen and just letting that nib pen sometimes put the ink on the page and sometimes just kind of carve into the paper. So peace is power. I don't remember where I got this piece of paper. It's just been sitting in my art journaling pile for a while, but this was, I think, a good time to use it. As you're all learning about me, you know that it's sometimes hard for me to decide that a page is done, and I'll just keep mark making on it until it feels
Great. So I think this is a good place to stop for today. Let's see here. I'm gonna go back to Erin. Erin, any final words before we sign off for today?
Have fun out there in the world, journal big, make messes. And I see the comment in the chat, and yes, I can definitely do a maybe on mix, something about pro-con for different adhesives or different adhesives for different reasons. I might save that for the next box because I will have a good reason to talk about that. Enjoy-
You just want to just spoil everything, Erin, don't you, today?
Oh goodness. So I've got some of our past adhesives right here with me. I like to, I'll just answer briefly, Rodney, that I like to have lots of different adhesives around all the time. Because you never know what you want to use, and having everything right here at hand is a great way to make sure your journaling doesn't get interrupted. So enjoy the rest of your day. I'm about to see my grandma, so that's exciting. And I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your pages. I look forward to seeing them on Mix.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. I'm going to stop the recording.